Hello everyone and welcome to the main streets of Gadgetzan Legendary Rankings! It's gonna be legendary, not just epic, legendary! Woo! Alright, so I had originally thought when I was looking through all the legendaries that there was more legendaries in this set than in any other set. And I was just like, what the fuck, Blizzard? You're just making it so hard for the casual player to get the cards that he needs. And then I realized that there's actually only 20 legendaries in this set, and Whispers of the Old Gods had 22, and that TGT actually had 22 as well. So I was wrong. They actually made slightly less legendaries for this set than they did for any other set. That being said, I also realized that in other sets, there were legendaries that just flat out sucked, and most of them did, and there were only a few that I actually wanted. And so when I look back on my collection, I realized I probably had less than half of the legendaries that were available in specific sets. And this was the first set where I'm just like, shit, I think I kind of want all of them. And I also made me realize that if you are a casual player and you don't want to spend a lot of money or zero money on this game, you're going to need to know what legendaries are the ones that I should craft and what are the ones that I shouldn't. So I have ranked every single legendary from top to bottom, all 20 of them, and here they are. Starting with number 20, Mayor Noggin Fogger. Yes, I know it's Noggin Fogger. 9 mana, 5/4, all targets are chosen randomly. Now, does this legendary have some value? It absolutely does. This card could save your ass if you're getting beat, because then all targets are chosen randomly, so it's entirely possible that your opponent will just randomly choose a bunch of negative shit and clear their own board. It's possible. But it's also very possible that they will just end up killing you, and they'll go through any taunts that you have, and then you won't be able to do anything. And then when it comes to your turn, you won't be able to do anything. So there's only one situation where I see this as good. You make some trades, you target all the stuff you want, then you play Mayor Noggin Fogger, and then you pass and let your opponent play crazy. And then hopefully, all these random situations add up to him having a very bad board state, you having a very good board state. Hopefully Mayor Noggin Fogger dies on that turn, and then you can in turn swing face and win the game. How often is that going to come up? Very, very little. This is why Mayor Noggin Fogger is number 20. Moving on, number 19, we have Auction Master Beardo. 3 mana, 3/4. After you cast a spell, refresh your hero power. I feel like this is only going to be good in one particular deck. It is the Highlander Priest deck. If this card combines with Raza the Chained, it's going to be very good, because you'll be able to play spells, and then you'll be able to use 0 mana hero powers, and then you'll be able to combine that with Nexus Champion Sarad, or I don't know, Kodo Rider, or stuff like that. You'll be able to use Inspire mechanics. It'll be, Confessor Paletress will be really good with this card. That being said, other than that, I don't think there's any other, deck that would want that. Now, I still don't know if this card actually gives you 0 cost hero powers or 2 mana hero powers. But my guess is it's going to be 2 mana hero powers. And then this card sucks and it's not going to see play. And yes, it's a 3 mana 3/4, but it's a legendary. You want your legendaries to have impact. And this card just doesn't have the impact. And coming up, number 18, Madame Goya. Why is this card so low? Well, I'll tell you why. I feel like situationally, the only situations where this is going to be good is you have to make a very specific deck built entirely around Madame Goya, who is a 6 mana 4/3, which still might not work. You're swapping for a random minion in your deck. You're putting a bad draw in your deck. Potentially you're getting a good draw. You're not getting the battle cry. Hopefully this card is good. And yes, it's a battle cry, so you will get to use the minion on that. If the minion doesn't have charge, you don't even get to use that minion. Hopefully it's a Ragnaros, where, you'll get to fire off. But unless this chick gets Ragnaros, that's the only time it's good. And then all you really did was innervate out Ragnaros and get a 4/3 body. Most of the time, this card is going to be terrible. It's going to be very, very hard to find a situation where it's good. Madame Goya, don't waste your time. Number 18. Finja. Just too weak. Murloc decks, I don't think are going to be strong. While this could potentially cause a Murloc deck, and it has a lot more upside than some of the, like the other cards have higher upside, but I feel like this card is a little more consistent to pull off its ability. Its ability is not as strong, but this has potential. And if you do get it in your pack openings, it's not that bad. This is the first one where I'm like, eh. The other ones are clearly bottom tier, and I would instantly dust. This one I might keep. And it's cool because it will foster different deck archetypes. It will allow you to create Murloc decks, and I think it will be a staple in said Murloc decks. I just don't think Murloc decks are going to be strong, and I don't think this card will see play, and you're probably better off just dusting it. Coming up next, Knuckles. I think this is probably the weakest of the class legendaries, even though I do like this card. If I do get Knuckles in my packs, I am not going to get rid of him. I'm going to keep him. I do think he does have synergy with a lot of the beast buffing things. But the problem is he's really only like really good if he gets buffed. And because there's only one of him, the likelihood of him getting buffed is relatively low. And quite honestly, I've been underwhelmed by a lot of the hunter buffs. And I don't know how much viability they actually have, and hence I don't know how much viability Knuckles is going to have. I'm still going to play him. I'm still going to keep him. But if you are playing Hunter and you're on a budget, he's probably better off just dusting. And next we have Shaku. Do I think this card has potential? Yes. My problem is it has potential in a deck archetype that I actually don't think is that good. I think Burgle Rogue is neat. I think it's fun, but I think it's too inconsistent. I do think Stealth Burgle Rogue could be a thing, and it could be a good deck. And Shaku would be a good addition to that deck. And Shadow Sensei works very well with this card. And you could potentially get 2 card draws off of this card if Shadow Sensei buffs this card. That being said, most of the time it's going to be a 3-mana 2/3, and most of the time it's just going to die. And yes, it does replace itself. But don't you want more out of your legendaries? Your legendaries need to be impactful. They need to do something that's actually going to be impactful. This card just doesn't have a lot of impact. I think Knuckles has more impact than this guy. And there lies my problem. Even if you do buff this guy, yes, you draw a card, but it's a card from your opponent's class. Who knows if it's good? If it was a card from your opponent's deck, it'd be really good. But since it's a card from your opponent's class, it could be crappy. And so you're playing a 3-mana 2/3 with stealth that could draw a crappy card. I just don't think it's that good. But it has more upside than if it lives and can attack. So potentially getting 2 cards for 1 card could be really good. And that's why I think it's a little bit better. And next up, I hate to say it, Don Hancho. I loved this card. Still love this card. I do think it could be very good, and I hope I'm wrong. But I saw this played in the live stream, and doggone it is so slow. A lot of times it's the only thing you do on turn 7. And yes, you're setting up for a very good turn 8. And it's a crappy top deck, right? If you top deck this card and you have no other minions, this guy sucks. The likelihood of you being able to play this with the minion that you buff is somewhat low. This card would only work in a deck that had a lot of 1-drops, 2-drops, and 3-drops. And then a deck like that probably wouldn't run Don Hancho because it's probably too slow. So the problem is that Don Hancho really only fits in a mid-range to control style Grimy Goons deck. So he's probably only going to fit in like Warrior, maybe Paladin. It's almost certainly too slow to be fit in Hunter. And so while I think this is a really good card, and it's probably going to see a lot more play than any of the cards below it, I also do think it is significantly the weakest of the tri-class legendaries. The more that I think about it, and the more that I think this is going to see play, I think the less it will see play. The more we tinker with it, the less application this card will have, and quite honestly, might just get phased out of a lot of the Grimy Goons decks. Coming up next is Genzo the Shark. I love this card. I think it's fucking great. It's a 4-mana 5/4, and then you get to draw cards when it attacks. So the problem with this card is it might just die. And then you wouldn't get its effect, because it has to attack, so it has to live a turn. And once people realize its power, it will become a high priority target. That being said, putting this into an aggro paladin Grimy Goons deck is going to be super strong and super powerful, and refilling your deck when you want to. So think about this. If you can play Genzo, and you attack, and you draw those cards, and then you play Grime Street Outfitter, and you buff the other cards in your deck, this card is great, because it's your choice when this happens. Unlike Jeeves, where it happens at the end of your turn. So I think this card is sneaky powerful, and I think it's a lot better than most people think. And I think it has a lot of potential. But it has potential in aggro decks, and that's the problem, is I feel like a lot of the decks being pushed right now, and a lot of decks that are being created, are going to be mid-range to late-game decks. And so Genzo doesn't have a place in those decks. He only has a place in aggressive decks that dump their hand. And so you're going to have to find decks that do that now, and it's going to be a lot harder given the tools that we have. And so that's why I don't think Genzo is that good, per se, because he's only good in a specific archetype. Moving on up, we got Cruel the Unshackled. So, I think Cruel is very good in combination with the Cabal Trafficker. I think he's very good in a Demon Lock style deck. The problem is, and this is where I think the issue I have with him is, it's a Demon Lock deck that's also a Reno deck, and I don't think that's actually going to be good. I think a Demon Lock deck that plays 2-ofs is going to be very good. But the problem with Cruel is that he asks you to make a Highlander deck, and that's where I think his drawback really stands. Now, I think we've gotten enough really good, strong demons to where a Highlander Demon Lock deck could actually be really good. But I have more doubts about that than I would about a deck that would allow me to play as many demons as I wanted to, or 2-ofs. And so that's why this card is not higher, because its effect is sick. So sick. 9 mana, get a 7/9, and then get all the other demons in your hand on your choice. It's your choice because it's a battle cry. It's not like Deathwing Dragonlord, where he could get silenced, he could get entombed, right? Bad things could happen, and then you wouldn't get the effect. And then it takes up your entire turn. Technically, this guy's 9 mana. He could get hit with Thorson, he could be 8 mana, and then you could life tap as well. There's stuff there, right? There's more play with this card than there is with other cards. And, let's face it, there are no charge dragons. There are 2. Yeah, if you have Doomguard with this card, it can be 9 mana, get a 7/9, play a 5/7 with charge, and then it doesn't force you to discard cards, and then get all the other demons. The swing potential for this card is massive. You play Fellfire Potion the turn before this, clear the board. Your opponent plays a couple of minions. You play Cruel, wham! You got a whole board, bam! He's dead on turn 10. Moving on up, we got Coon, the Forgotten King. Most people have said that this is the best legendary. I disagree. Here's my problem. Because this costs 10 mana, you're going to get run over before you can play this card a lot. Now, if you can play a very control-style, heavy, late-game style deck and you can survive, Coon is very good. So my issue with Coon is that if you're using it to get the 10 armor, you've probably lost the game. It's rare that you will be in a board state to where a 10 mana 7/7 gain 10 armor wins you the game. It could stall the game out and potentially allow you to win the game later on, but it's not winning the game on that turn. However, a free 7/7 combined with a bunch of other cards is extremely powerful and will win you the game on that turn if you can, well, the next turn when they get to attack, but you know what I'm saying. And so that's my problem, is that even though this is a choose one and it's flexible, I don't need flexibility on turn 10 per se. I just want it to fucking do something that's going to kick some fucking ass. I need something that's going to win me the game. And only one of these choices wins me the game. If I have enough cards. And so that's why it's tough, is the situation to get yourself set up to be able to play this card to then win yourself the game is difficult. But when it does hit, it's going to hit and it's going to be strong. So I do think this will see a lot of play. I do think it will be played in a significant amount of Druid decks, and it is flexible in a sense that it'll fit into, it could just be a one of in any Druid deck, but I just don't think it's quite as powerful as people thought it was. People thought this card was bonkers. I just think it's very good. Coming up next is Rathon. 6 mana, 4/5 taunt battle cry. Draw cards until you draw one that isn't a dragon. How the fuck is this better than Coon? I'll tell you how. It's 6 mana. It's a taunt. It protects your face. It draws at least one card, if not more. And the cards that it draws, if it draws more cards, are dragons. This is a very, very utilitarian card. You're going to be able to use this in any type of dragon deck. Obviously, Dragon Priest is probably going to be the strongest. And so it's probably going to be a one of it. Obviously, it's going to be a one of a Dragon Priest. Well, that's great, right? What if you're out of dragons and you play this card? You might draw a dragon and there's your dragon synergy. And now you can, this will help your dragon synergy to be consistent, to continue to go. You might run out of dragons by turn 5. And if you do, Rathon will probably draw you one. But even if he doesn't, he might draw you Dragonfire Potion to allow you to clear the board. He might draw, other spells. Whatever he draws, it's going to be good. Whatever he draws, it cycles itself. And it's a 6 mana, 4/5 taunt. It's got taunt. It's going to protect your face. It's going to allow you to reestablish your board afterwards. Really good card. We'll see a ton of play, and especially in Dragon Priest. Next up, we got Raza the Chained. 5 mana, 5/5. If your deck has no duplicates, your hero power costs 0 this game. So, I think this effect is incredibly powerful, and especially powerful the longer the game goes. Very, very good. My only issue with this card is that it requires you to make a Highlander Priest. And I question the power of a Highlander Priest. And hence, that's why this card is not higher. But its effect is fucking busted and fucking good. My other problem with this card, though, is if you're getting run over, this card does almost nothing to save you from getting run over. If you're just getting run over and it's turn 5 and you play this guy, your opponent probably just continues to run you over and just ignores this dude and goes face. And that actually has been an issue even with a card as powerful as Emperor Thaurissan. There's been, I'd say 20% of the time when somebody plays Thaurissan, they're playing it out of desperation. And I'm just smashing them face and they're about to die. And then a lot of times I go, whatever, fuck it, ignore your Thaurissan. I'm just going to kill you. And that, I think, is the drawback to this card. It doesn't solve Priest's problem, which is, I'm getting run over. Coming up next, we got White Eyes. Yeah. So, the only problem with this card is the transformation effects and cards like Entomb and Silence. And so, Silence is a little bit more prevalent now. Entomb, Transform, Potion of Polymorph. These are still cards. Hex. These are still cards that really fuck this card over. And putting a card in your deck that you draw later on is not that good because you may never draw it, and then all you get is a 5 mana 5/5 with Taunt. Where I think I differ from other people, and I said this in other videos, is that a 5 mana 5/5 with Taunt is still really good and is still worth having, and its potential upside is so high and so good that you're going to find a slot for this. And in a weird way, the fact that this is a legendary is actually beneficial to it, because you only need one. And next up, we've got Hobart Grapple Hammer. This card is fantastic on turn 2. Fantastic in the early game. However, it's shitty in the late game. It's a shitty late game draw. But Whereas I think Wide Eyes suffers a lot of potential drawbacks because it could be removed, taken out. This card is a battle cry, so it's going to happen right away. And the other thing is, it fits into decks that are weapon-based and that are aggressive. And so, even though this is a bad late-game draw, most of the time you're not even getting to the late game. You don't care about the late game. You just want to draw this guy in the first 4 turns. That's it. And then if you do, he buffs your weapons, and then you're going from there, and you're upgrading, and yeah. And if you never draw him, it's not that bad. He's not a huge part. He's not like a win condition, right? He just makes all your weapons better, and then makes it that much more likely that you're going to get enough face damage to win. That's why I think he's such a good legendary, because his drawbacks are in decks that you're not even going to play him in anyway. So in the decks that he does fit into, he's going to be fantastic. And the decks that he doesn't fit into, you're not going to play him, so who cares? Moving on, we got a Wicker Flame Burn Bristle. Much like Hobart, this is a legendary that is just going to be in every deck. And that's what I love the most about him. And I think I can say this, and then that I think is the thing that is most prevalent about all the legendaries from here on up, is that situationally they're very good in almost all situations. So Wicker Flame is super duper good. Right? 3 mana, 2/2, Divine Shield, Taunt. You always want that. You always want a very sticky, annoying minion that heals you. Right? He's probably going to heal you for at least 2, maybe 4. If he gets buffed, he's amazing with buffs. You know, it's an Annoyatron on crack. And I loved Annoyatron. I played him a lot. You know, he's much better. He is perfectly statted and better than any other Divine Shield Taunt minion. He's better than Sunwalker. He's better than Psychotron. He's better than Annoyatron. He's just flat out good, and there's no reason to not have him in any one of your Paladin decks. Aggro decks or control decks or mid-range decks. You just slot him in and then figure out the other 29 cards. That's why he's so good. Patches the Pirate. How the fuck is Patches better than Wicker Flame? Because I love him, and I love pirates, and he's going to be an auto-include in any pirate deck. And much like Hobart, his drawback is if you draw him in the late game, he sucks. Well, guess what? You're never going to draw him in the late game because you're going to play a pirate before then, and he's going to come out, and he's going to be really good. This card has only upside, and even if you do draw him, he's still a 1-mana 1/1 with charge, so it's easy to play. It's a shitty draw, but you're going to play a pirate before you get this guy. The only time he's bad is if he's in your hand. And even then, you can just play him on turn 1 and go nuts. He's always good. Every situation you have him in, he's always good. And even in the bad situations, he's only kinda bad. And moving on, Ink Master Solia. So, I've already discussed the drawbacks of this card. If you don't have good spells, this card is bad. And I'd say this is my highest ranked card where the downside is big, is pretty big. However, I feel like all the situations when you play... The part about this card, this is not like Wicker Flame, where you just dump him. You just play him and he's good. Right? This is a card that you're going to want to be very judicious with. You're going to want to wait. You're going to want to amass cards. You're going to have options. And then, when you do play this card, it's super duper impactful because you have gotten that Flame Strike. You have gotten that Fireland's Portal, right? You have gotten that 10-mana Kazakis spell. And so, Ink Master Solia will probably sit in your hand for a long time. And it's a good top deck if you have spells, right? So the thing is you have to make sure you have spells. Where I think this card shines the most, in my opinion, aside from the Kazakis, is with Kabbalist Tome. Being able to play a 7-mana 5/5 and then play Kabbalist Tome and get spells, and then hopefully having a little bit of mana left over to play said spells is amazing. Setting yourself for turn 8 to have a lot of spells to go nuts is awesome. You know, but like I said, just the normal examples of Flame Strike, of Fireland's Portal, stuff like that, all these really powerful magic, Pyroblast, right? This could be a finisher. What if your opponent's already down to 10? Ink Master Solia, Pyroblast, boom. He's dead on turn 7. So, in a weird way, this could actually create an aggro Reno control deck. A tempo-oriented Reno deck, which we haven't seen before. And that's why I really like Ink Master Solia. And that's why I think it's a fantastic card. Because its upside is so good. And when you are ready to play it, it's gonna have really significant impact. And it's such a good card for Mage. Coming up. Next up, Sergeant Sally. Why is Sergeant Sally better than Ink Master Solia? Is this card difficult to pull off to give it any sort of legitimate damage? Yeah, it is. You are going to have to buff it. It is going to have to be buffed in your hand. Or it's going to be buffed on board. You know. But it gives board clears to classes that don't have access to a lot of board clears. This card in Grimy Goon's Paladin is going to be ridiculous. This card in Grimy Goon's Warrior is going to be ridiculous. Even this card in a Grimy Goon's Hunter is going to be good. Clear your opponent's board and just keep going face. This card in Warlock is going to be sick with Power Overwhelming. This Power Overwhelming, boom, 5 damage to the entire board at the end of your turn. Wow! Sick as fuck. I mean, that's really, really good. And it sucks in the Cabal decks, but guess what? The Cabal decks already have their own board clears. So that's what I love about this card. It is a board clear for decks that don't normally have board clears, and that's why I think it is incredibly powerful and one of the best legendaries out there. Coming up, we have Kazakis. 4 mana, 3/3. Now, why do I love this card? The ability to have 3 different discoveries and 3 different choices means this card is fantastic. It's a good play at any point in the mana curve from 4 on. You play it on 4. If you're ahead and you're comfortable, you get the 10 mana card. Maybe you never play it, maybe you do, but you combo with Ink Master Solia. Maybe you play this on turn 4 and you get the 5-drop spell. Well, then guess what? Turn 5's coming up. You play it on turn 5. Maybe you just get the 1 mana spell because you don't need something that powerful. That's fine, right? You're already ahead. It's going to help you secure the board a little bit more. It's got a fairly okay body. It's 3/3. And your ability to very distinctly customize a spell for any situation that you're going to face, whether now or in the future, which I think is what really gives it its power, is incredible. You can always find a time to play the spell that you create, and you can hyper tailor it over the course of 3 different decision points to the situations that you need. And not only can you tailor it to the situations of now, i.e. turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, you can tailor it to the situations of later, turns 10, 8, 9, 10, and beyond. So you could play this card thinking 6 turns down the line and going, watch, I'm going to set all this up, and then when I play this fucking card on turn 10, boom! My opponent is just going to get fucked in the ass, and then I'm going to win the game right there. And that's what I think this card is so good, because it has so many ways to swing the game or just win you the game. And that is why it is my number 2 legendary. But number 1, if you've been paying attention, you know who it is. It's my main homegirl, Panda Homegirl, bringing back the panda hat for this one. It's Eyye Blackpaw. Why is she number 1? Eyye Blackpaw is never a bad play. Ever. If you are playing a Jade Golem deck, Eyye Blackpaw is an auto-include. You have to have this card to make Jade Lotus decks really, really run. You get 2 Jade Golems for the price of 1. And by the time turn 6 hits, you've already got Jade Golem synergy going. Even in Rogue, where you have at max 8 Jade Golem synergies going, by the time you get Eyye Blackpaw out, you're getting a 5/3 with a 4/4 that summons a 5/5 when it dies. The stat distribution is incredible. It scales upwards. The more Jade Golems you have, the better this card becomes. This card could easily be a 6 mana, 5/3, summon an 8/8, and when it dies, get a 9/9. It's ridiculous. But you have to have this card to make Jade Lotus decks go. And so that's why it's number 1. Because I would say, out of all these cards, if there was one card that I was going to make, then I only had 1,600 dust to do it to use, it would be Eyye Blackpaw. And that's actually how I made this list. In order of what would I spend my 1,600 dust on if that's all I had. And so as a budget player, if you're watching this video and you're thinking about what the heck should I do with my dust, if there's one legendary to save up for, it's Eyye Blackpaw. That's the one. Because Jade Lotus decks are nice and simple to play. They're easy to figure out. And for the most part, they revolve around relatively cheap cards, commons and rares. And aside from that, and then just getting Eyye Blackpaw is going to be great. Look at Jade Rogue, right? Their 2 Golem cards are both common, I think. And one of them might be rare, but I know they're both rare or common. And so you don't need a whole lot of dust in order to make a very viable Jade Golem Rogue. Okay, yes, a Druid Jade Golem Rogue will be a little harder, and the Shaman Jade Golem Rogue will be a little harder than that, just because I don't think it's that viable. But being able to play 2 incredibly powerful, very viable decks in Jade Rogue and Jade Druid is incredible. And you need Eyye Blackpaw in order to make that deck and make that deck go. So, there you go. Eyye Blackpaw, number 1 legendary. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope you learned something from it. Please like, please subscribe, please share. I got links to the other videos in the bottom in my Mean Streets of Gadgetzan series. I'm going to continue to be pumping out content while things come out, and I really thank you. Please go ahead and watch the live Twitch streams when I do that. Feel free to donate if you want to. Yeah, other than that, thanks guys. I hope you like this video, and I'll see you later.